Hi there. Welcome back to The Tributary. I'm your host, Bonnie Adams. On this episode, we have Brooke Bierhaus Sutton. Brooke is an award-winning documentary filmmaker, food anthropologist, and entrepreneur whose work has catapulted her into remote areas of the globe. Best known for her featured documentary, The Connected Cup, where Brooke spent 5 years traversing the globe exploring coffee, tea, as a language of connection. The documentary culminates with first connected being clean water. Brooke is an advocate for clean water access and continues to work with NGOs in East Africa to provide clean water and sanitation access. Brooke believes sharing moments over coffee can create lasting impacts and break down barriers. Brooke's work has appeared in National Geographic, Vox Media, PBS, NBC Sports, Arkansas PBS, Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art, ABC Australia, and more. Brooke has called Northwest Arkansas home since 2020 and is the proud co-owner of Third Space Coffee here in Bentonville with her husband and business partner. She is publishing her master's thesis and first literary work revolving around the importance of third places in society and the cultivation of atmospheres through sensory experience. As a small business owner in the hospitality industry, she is seeing firsthand how special it is to provide intentional space for the community. We're so excited to have Brooke join us today on this episode and discuss her love of water and how it brings us all together.
You know, the really tall, good-looking guy that comes to the slams and he's really fast. I'm like, oh yeah, that guy.
He's our goggle guy.
Oh, I love that.
I do too. I absolutely do. Okay.
Cool.
Yay.
Yeah.
Okay, it's happening. I'm excited too. All right. Welcome to this episode of The Tributary. I'm your host, Bonnie Adams, and I'm here today with Brooke Bierhaus Sutton. Yay.
Yeah.
Yes. Woohoo, indeed. And we have a lot of fun things to talk about, I think. And I'm really excited to kind of dive into your story and where this takes us. I think will be very, very interesting. But we'll jump in with our standard regular things, if that's
Awesome.
okay.
Yes.
So one of the things that we do is water safety. I am a water safety advocate, and really anytime I have a captured audience, I'm going to share some water safety stuff.
As you should. Yes.
So
do it.
yeah, so basically I thought, because we'll get to this in a moment, but one of your favorite bodies of water is rivers.
Mhm.
And so thought about trying to kind of bring to light some things that you don't necessarily think about when you are around rivers and creeks and things. And so this one's really straightforward and pretty simple, but we want to make sure that you're not walking, playing, or climbing on rocks and logs. And I thought this was really interesting in regards to the log aspect of things, because you can see giant logs. I mean,
Yeah.
basically trees that fall into the rivers all the time, and they look stable. They look strong, but who knows how long they've been there,
Right.
mossy, all of those kinds of things. So really, I felt like it was definitely worth mentioning on that. And rocks are the same as far as the slippage and that kind of thing. So goodness knows I've had a stub toe or two on slimy rocks. Riverside. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And so luckily it hasn't been anything major, but it wouldn't be much for it to turn into something major. And that's the piece. So just be super, super aware when you guys are out there enjoying nature and that kind of thing. So that's our water safety tip.
Good tip.
Thanks. So you've done some really cool things. Describe yourself.
I saw you being like, she wears so many hats. Let's get into this. And it's interesting. I always say I'm a multi-hyphenate because I really have a lot of interests and passions. But I'm at my core, a documentary filmmaker and television presenter who's turned into a entrepreneur and small business owner. I'm the proud co-owner of Third Space Coffee here in Bentonville. And yes, and brought a coffee in today.
And
Of
it's
course,
so
I gotta bring one
tasty.
for you, Bonnie. So I do a lot of different things, but I feel like it all kind of connects through my love of coffee, my love of people, and my love of community.
That speaks my language.
Yes.
We've had a couple of episodes already. One was very centered around community, and that was episode 1 for those of you that are just jumping in and joining us. But it's amazing how at the base of that community, water comes into play,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
And that's really, I think, that's what this whole thing is about, right? The tributary is our connector is water in any way, shape, or form. And we've had some really, really fun stories on here, and it just made sense to have you come and share your perspective on what that is.
Yeah.
So that's going to lead me to our fun fact of the episode.
Great.
So I thought this was really interesting since we're talking a bit specifically about coffee. Coffee is grown in more than 70 tropical countries and enjoyed everywhere. It's the second most exported commodity in the world, only after oil.
Isn't that
Like,
wild?
it literally fuels us.
Yeah. Wild.
Totally. Yeah, I thought that was really kind of crazy. Top coffee producing countries globally are Brazil, Vietnam, and Colombia. Highest annual per person consumption, and this is what kind of blew my mind, are the Scandinavian countries. Long, dark, and cold winters make coffee highly prized. I was like,
They love their coffee.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that was not something that I had given 10 choices. That would have been like number
Really?
15. Oh yeah. Like I just wouldn't have thought that they would be our highest consumption of coffee worldwide. So I thought that was really interesting. And then here in the US, we consume roughly 9.7 pounds of coffee annually, which I thought was wild. Like that's a lot of coffee I'm drinking. And I'm, to sit and kind of think about that, I'm probably really not surprised.
Yeah, I forget what that boils down to per day that each like American. I know some people don't drink coffee, but if you were to go at each American drinking per day, it's something outrageous too, where I was like, oh gosh.
Yeah.
Although I probably make up for the people who don't drink coffee, so
I like
it
that.
gets a little average because it's a little higher.
Yeah. Oh, here it is. The last sentence.
Was it?
The average person in the U.S. consumes about 3 cups of coffee per day. So,
Yeah. Which
Yeah.
I was like, that honestly is kind of crazy if you think about it.
Yeah. It's a lot. I know that if I don't get my coffee by, 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I've got a headache, and it's
Yeah.
a killer headache.
Yeah.
I missed my coffee a couple weeks ago and was like, dang it. It was not pleasant.
Well, not today. We got you sorted.
I'm
Yes.
taken care of. Thank you, Third Space.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about Third Space.
Oh, I could talk about it all day.
I know you
me.
can.
I'll keep it pretty brief. So Third Space Coffee opened March of 2023. So as we're recording today in March, we're coming up on our first year in
Birthday.
business. Yeah. And
Congrats.
it's insane. I've learned a lot within this last year. But we created Third Space. This is our first brick and mortar location in a very unique location.
Very.
So we are inside of the Best Friends Animal Society Pet Resource Center. It's the first of its kind. It's this reimagined space for animal welfare. So we have different rooms. You can go in and see cats and dogs, and you can take dogs out for a dog day out. You can go around on the trails outside, and all of that you can do with coffee. So we have coffee. We're a micro bakery where we do gluten-free and vegan baked goods, which at the moment is very much on me, but we're also doing some updates to where our team will be able to bake and stuff as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, really excited about that. And introducing just some small selection of food when it comes to like vegan burritos. We're all plant-based at Third Space too. So down to the milks, you can have oat, almond, and coconut. We also have some fun milks every once in a while, like pistachio and things like that. For us, it's all about sustainability and just trying to reduce our carbon footprint when it comes to like all of our cups are compostable, all of our utensils. We're just trying to be,
That's awesome.
yeah, just as intentional as possible. And we just love that connection of like where we are as a coffee shop in Bentonville. We are a big connector for human to human connection, human to animals, and then human to nature. And so that's just really, I'm really happy with the path that we've taken and kind of like what we're building. But it's always hard as a small business owner,
Yeah.
So we're taking it day by day.
Indeed. I love you touched on a couple of things. The intentionality of what you guys have created and done is really amazing. And then you tied into three pieces that I really, truly, I feel like are poor man's therapy, if you will,
Yeah,
but community, animals, and nature. Like,
100%.
it, let's kind of dive in a little bit on those if you don't mind.
Yeah, let.
I find so I have several animals. Our listeners don't know this, so I have two Chesapeake Bay Retrievers, Bourbon and Whiskey.
Oh, they're the best.
And they're amazing. And they're water dogs. I
Yep.
know that's really a surprise to all of you out there. And then we have two cats and we have three turtles and we have a bird. So I am a big proponent and advocate of animals. And
Yeah.
we have our animals for multiple reasons. Enjoyment, entertainment. We have one on the other side of the door literally talking to us right now. And protection, exercise because they need exercise. I
Yeah.
get exercise. So it's all of those pieces that tie into having an animal, but how much better my mental health is because of that.
It's really incredible.
Yeah. Tell me what you see of your patrons that come in and grab a cup of coffee and go in and enjoy the cat room or the kitten room, which is amazing, by the way.
Yes, kitten season is another level.
Yeah, it really is. I've never been. The last time we went in, it was maybe 6 months ago or something, and there were I think like 15 kittens. I was in there for like an hour and a half. I was so happy.
Yeah.
My husband was like, "Do I need to frisk you for a kitten in your pocket?" Like, no, I promise. I left them all there.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I mean, for me, I was like my other career would have been a veterinarian. Like I wanted to
Okay.
own a ranch. I wanted to do large scale veterinarian work, and my past work in Costa Rica and in Tanzania and Kenya was all on wildlife conservation. And so looking at like anti-poaching efforts, communicating with like local anti-poachers and poachers and trying to like help with transportation of bushmeat out of.
Wow.
So I really like, for me, it was all about animals when I was first starting
Yeah.
out within storytelling. I always knew journalism. I would have loved to have been a veterinarian, but I digress. So all of these things would always come back. And when the opportunity to put our proposal in for best friends, and they were taking different coffee shop proposals and cafes and other businesses that were way more set than we were. And they chose us, I think, because of how much we love this community, but also how huge animal lovers we are,
Yeah.
all three of us. And so that has always been like that. Just I'm living my dream every day when I go in and I'm, baking or making coffee and talking with people, and dogs are coming up for pup cups, and there's a huge intake of kittens, and they're all coming over, and then like the cats. And you had asked about the patrons that come in, and there are just countless stories and experiences that I've already seen within this year where someone will come in. In particular, it seems to be either families who are a little hesitant about introducing an animal because maybe a kid had a traumatic event when they were younger,
Mm,
or there's different families that have just lost a dog or a cat that meant a lot to them,
yeah.
and they just aren't sure if they can be around animals. And so what happens is these like customers come in and they're telling us, yeah, we weren't really sure about like adopting, but we knew we could get coffee. We knew we could just kind of sit around and be in the vicinity of animals and just just feel it out, see how it felt. And I would say like 80% of the time, they come back or they they come back for the animal, or they leave that day with an animal.
That's
And it's
amazing.
really interesting. Like we've had a lot of
A big shift.
yeah, like the therapy that you mentioned, we have a lot of like customers and regulars that come in now. And there's a few in my mind that just really stick out where they'll come in, and they come in because either a few have opened up, whether they're dealing with depression or they're dealing with feeling like alienated in some way in
Mhm.
isolation. And they come in and they feel just that serotonin release,
Yeah.
being with animals. And it's really neat to see whenever I have favorites. Let's go with this. It's a little tangent, but I have favorites when it comes to the cats and the dogs. And I'm always like so close to adopting them. I'll text Dawn, my husband, and be like, okay, there's a cat I really want you to meet. Or I'll say, I met the cutest guy today. And he's like, okay, well, what kind of breed is it? Like knowing
Right.
it's a dog.
Totally.
Knowing it's a dog. And then you see this really cool thing happen where a customer will come in and they just it's like the animal's meant to be with them.
Yeah.
Like you see them leave, and I just remember this one time, this dog that I love named Shadow. I was so close to adopting him. Well, I would have. You know. Anyway, if we didn't already have two large dogs.
Right.
But he came out for a pup cup with this guy that was just kind of like feeling it out.
Yeah.
And you could just tell the guy said, "Sit, Shadow," like kind of, timid as he wasn't sure. Shadow was just right there with him. And the look that
Precious.
that dog gave that man, I was like, it's it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you guys found each other. And so that's really cool to
That's
witness.
precious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a special thing for sure. I have a sister that lives here in town, and she had two dogs with her for years, all of her adult life. And unfortunately, in the last year and a half, both of them passed.
Oh,
And I mean, that's just, they're part of the family.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's really hard.
yeah.
But she's been able to go to Best Friends, and she fostered one.
Oh.
Andy was his name for a couple weeks, and then Andy was able to be adopted. But I thought it was so cool how she basically would drop him off in the morning.
Yeah.
He would spend the day at Best Friends, and then she'd pick him up in the evening and spend the night and the evening with her. And it was it was truly just the perfect scenario of giving her that okay, now I've got somebody that's relying on me,
Yep.
but it's not a permanent piece, because she's got some other stuff. She's writing a huge exam and isn't really sure kind of what that next step is for her in her life. And anyway, it's been a really neat thing to see that progression of her mourning her own animals, but being able to literally foster that relationship and that mental growth for her and all of that kind of fun stuff.
And
I
it's
think
neat
it's
that
really
you
neat.
said that. I just want to touch on quickly the foster
Mm.
side of it, because that is something that's unique to this pet resource.
Yeah,
guys.
I've never heard anything like that. It's really
Bringing them
cool.
in for doggy daycare in that way allows for people then to, one, it takes a little stress off of the fosters, but also it allows for people to see the dogs every day and get
Yeah.
that interaction, and they're more likely to get adopted. It's really cool.
It really is. It's a beautiful scenario. It really is. And like, she had to, I forget, I think she had a practice test, or I don't know, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But had something that she was like, I can't bring him home on Saturday. And they were like, oh, not a problem. We'll keep him all weekend.
They're amazing.
And it was like, it was just wonderful, easy piece. And it was, it was really good. I would not be surprised if she fosters another one
Good.
and does that a time or two until it's literally her time
Yeah.
to adopt another one. But yeah, it's really neat to see that kind of aspect of things. I mean, that's so many parts of the community building, and just that interaction. And yeah, what a cool part that you get to play a part of, and Coffee gets to play a part of,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. I think that's really
We
I think that's really
definitely get
neat.
the fun side of it.
Yeah.
Like, we don't do anything. Third Space doesn't have any like role in the animal welfare other than like we give pup cups.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Which is adorable. And for those that don't know what a pup cup is, it's like basically a shot glass size,
Yeah.
maybe a little bigger,
Yeah.
of
whipped cream.
Yep, right?
And
Yeah.
maybe a little doggy bone for a garnish.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, that's adorable.
Yeah.
And can I just tell you, I've seen a couple of them, and it's so funny. Like and I know these guys are like probably part of your favorites,
Totally.
but you'll like invite them and they'll jump up on the counter, and they are just like, their little back ends are so happy.
Tail wag.
Tail wag is amazing. Yeah, the tail wag for the pup cup
We
is
live for
epic.
that. Yeah. I'm always giving the cup to the owner or whoever comes up for it, and I'm like, I'll let you do the honor.
Yes.
I'm like, it is an honor.
Yeah. I think that's amazing. So prior to Third Space, and I think probably what really got you into coffee and tea and just that
Yeah.
piece, you did a really amazing documentary called The Connected Cup.
Yes.
Tell us a little about that.
The Connected Cup is truly an odyssey looking at coffee and tea as a global language of connection around the world. And it was something that I was working on for 4.5 years while I was doing a lot of nonprofit work within the wildlife conservation in advocacy, female education advocacy, as well as clean water. And so a lot of my work was either in East Africa or in the Middle East. And I was kind of like changing up a little bit in Asia as well. And I
World traveler.
like it was truly
Wow.
4.5 years of about 22 countries, I think, within that span. The Connected Cup encompasses 8 of those countries, and I have interviews that we use 8 different languages. And it's really trying to showcase the different coffee and tea cultures around the world while still telling it through the people and the eyes of humanity, not just like we touch on the coffee growers and the tea processors and growers, but it's really the for instance, in Italy, we went to Venice and it's the oldest coffee house in the world.
Yeah.
And we talked to one of the like art directors there. Mr. Stefano Steptovic is still my favorite interview. He's like the godfather of coffee. If I had a visual for him, he's literally
That
godfather.
paints his picture very,
Yeah.
very well.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's those type of interviews where we talk about the influence of coffee and tea personally, but also on history, on culture, on how we create communities. I mean, even on talking about coffee and tea used as a connector when I was climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. And so it's like that is a part of the film too. We're looking at communities that are temporary as well as ones that stay.
Mhm.
And it's just really interesting and something that gave me a lot of insight into what it would mean to be an entrepreneur, but also to own and run a coffee house, which I never thought I would really do because it's so hard.
Yeah.
It looks easy to a lot of people, and it's grueling.
It's a whole nother level. I mean, you've got to be up and running and ready and all the things that, whatever ungodly time, I'm sure.
Right.
And especially like having the bakery aspect of it. You touched on, I'm going to fumble the words, but temporary location or what it would,
temporary like communities.
yeah, temporary
families.
communities.
Yeah.
So I want to touch on that a little bit. So really we met out at the lake.
Yes, we did.
And so I do an event the end of September called the Oz Mile Swim. And we had you guys come out and provide our coffee last year, which was fantastic. But
we ran out.
I know. Exactly. We have a lot of thirsty folks that come swim, not only volunteers, but participants and spectators as well. And it was really funny. I had a conversation with our beer vendor, Pabst Blue Ribbon. They're amazing.
Yeah.
And he was doing the math of, he's like, okay, so we got you 30 cases. How much did you have left over? I was like, I only had 2 cases left. He's like, wow.
Yeah.
I was like, no, we're a thirsty batch. And he's like, it's not just adults that are swimming, is it? I was like, well, no, it's not. We have children, but I promise they're not. But it's the course of 3 days. We kick off things Friday and then do Saturday and Sunday. And anyway, back to the temporary community part, having the ability to set up the morning ritual. I mean, it's a ritual. Let's be honest. For probably well over half of the coffee consumers, I would imagine once you kind of start drinking coffee, you got to keep doing it. Otherwise, you'll end up with a headache like me, which is not pleasant.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that part of things for you.
Yeah. Well, I'll give a little bit of history of it first.
Yeah.
And kind of go into what I've been seeing. My master's thesis is on these third places in the cultivation of atmospheres within coffee shops and also temporary communities. And so I will be defending that soon and publishing. Thank goodness.
Oh, that's super exciting.
Oh, man.
That's super exciting.
But coffee itself has always been a ritual, and it's always been placed as a way for community to come together and have these moments of connection and almost a meditation. And same with matcha, when we look back historically, how matcha has been used in ceremony in Japan. And so in the Connected Cup, we look at matcha and coffee ceremonies very similar. We go from Ethiopia, where the birthplace of coffee is said to have been, as well as then going to Kyoto, Japan, and looking at matcha ceremonies. And so when it comes to whether you drink tea or coffee, we can kind of use both of those. But for this instance, I use coffee because if you look at coffee ceremonies in Ethiopia, it's always in 3 rounds. So you start with the strongest. It's known as abul. And abul is the round where best coffee I've ever had. It's so strong. It's dense. It's like 3 ounces, little cups at a
Yeah.
time. And it's poured and you all enjoy it together and you're kind of talking. And that's when conversation gets started. And you're like, okay, cool. This is a neat interaction. And then we look around and everyone's kind of done. So wash it, boil again, and we make what's known as tona. And tona is the second round. And it's a little bit weaker, but it's what I would describe. Like the first round is really espresso shots. And
Okay.
then the second round is like that drip coffee style, pour over style.
Yeah.
And then the third round, so you have abel, tona, and then baraka. And baraka, as the last round, is just like you can give it to babies. Some of them do.
Okay.
Like
Oh my
when we
gosh.
were sitting there, the babies would like have a little bit on the inside of the lip, and just
Oh
to
my
kind of
gosh, how
like,
cute.
yeah,
Just to include them in part of the whole thing.
exactly, to really
Very
feel
cool.
like that full inclusion. And it was really neat whenever the kids would get invited in because they were just like so confident
All
and
grown
proud to
up.
be in there, just so grown up.
Cute.
And so that itself is like, okay, we've already established how important it is to have a ritual and to have community. And even if you're doing it at home, your own ritual, that pour over, or even just placing it in a standard, like American style coffee carafe,
Yeah.
that that is a part of your day.
Yeah.
And for me and for what I've seen as this, like when people come into the coffee shop, it's a little bit different because it is a part of your ritual. I know that financially we can't all afford to come into a coffee shop every single day. But when you do, such an it's such a special place because
Yeah. It's an elevated experience for me.
yeah, you know what to expect, whether it's a new coffee shop you're going into or one that you visited 100 of times. You know that you'll go in and kind of have banter with the barista. You can talk about things, and then you'll get your coffee. You can sit down. Usually there's good Wi-Fi. Maybe you can walk around a little bit. You're going to read, and then you leave. And so those temporary experiences, there's something that can carry into your day and set you up for success or set you up for, whatever it is your need for that day.
Productivity, hopefully.
Usually productivity. But I love temporary communities when you set up like we would, in nature with like an AeroPress or something.
Yeah.
Like on long through hikes, I love that ritual of a morning coffee.
Yeah.
And it's just really neat.
Yeah. Yeah. We use our French press when we travel.
Yeah.
And it's for me, we don't use our French press very much at home. It just takes a little bit longer.
Yeah.
It is what it is. On the weekends occasionally, but it's probably like every other month that I might do a French press at home.
Totally.
But when we travel, that's how we do it. And it's because we have a little more time. But I'll tell you what, the coffee is so much better.
Yeah.
And it can be the exact same coffee, but just because we prep it in that way, it expands the ritual. It makes it a little more meaningful. It sets me up for, okay, this is a relaxing time of my day.
Yeah.
And that part of the ritual itself is really special and makes it a little more meaningful and, to use your word earlier, intentional.
Yes, definitely.
Which is a nice thing to be able to do sometimes.
Yeah.
Very cool. The connected cup I thoroughly enjoyed it, by the way.
Thanks, I
I
appreciate
don't know
that.
that I've really talked to you about it since I watched it. I thought it was absolutely fascinating. I thought it was really well done. So kudos, well done.
Dang.
For those that are listening, we'll have links in the show notes
Awesome.
to watch. You can pull it up, even just Google Connected Cup on YouTube, and it pops right up. But really a neat story. I think one of the funny parts for me, and it's like basically the discovery of coffee, was via a goat.
Yeah.
And I thought that was great. Like his goats, it was this goat herder or shepherd, and they just had a whole lot more energy all of a sudden. And it was because they were eating coffee berries. And
Yeah.
I thought that was right.
Nature knows.
Nature
you want
knows. That's a
animals.
beautiful thing. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. Yeah. So tell me about your favorite body of water.
Well, so being named Brooke, I tend to fall into loving like rivers and streams. And that just like it was always kind of a running joke in our family that if when we were on like through hikes and long backpacking trips, be like, oh man, we really need to refuel and get some more water and sanitize some water. And I was like, I'll find it. Like, I just know where that stream is. That
The
runs
water
through-
whisperer.
yes. And I just, something about being able to like see where the land is. I'm not a big ocean person. My husband's a very big ocean person, and I love the ocean, but I think rivers allow me to feel like grounded, but also that movement within water and just feeling comfortable canoeing or, finding a swimming hole or something. So I really, really gravitate towards rivers and streams,
Awesome. Well, they're so convenient too.
especially here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Literally our
Yeah, they're
backyard.
everywhere.
There's a great one just down the way. Yeah, which is a lovely thing for sure. Tell me about when you learned to swim.
So I grew up with an older sister, still have a beautiful older sister and younger brother. And being the middle child, I wanted to do everything at the same time that my sister did. And so I was like running really early on, trying to catch her, walking super early, and just happened to swim really early too, because I wanted to be just like her and go off the deep end. I wanted to go off the diving board, everything. And so at our local pool, I just like jumped in, and I don't know, I luckily don't have any traumatic experience from it. I just remember kind of going into water and being like, oh, I think I need to like
literally in over your head.
yeah. And I really don't remember a time where I wasn't swimming. Like I feel really comfortable swimming. Not I didn't learn to do a flip turn until COVID. And so lap swimming was something new to me that once I met my husband, I got really into and super excited about it. But I was a diver through middle school and really loved that interaction with water. But learning to swim was just early on because of my older sister and
That's
wanted
awesome.
to keep up,
Yeah, I love that. I think I call that positive peer pressure.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's, especially within siblings, I think even like as a swim instructor, I'm a big advocate of private swimming lessons. However, a lot of times when kids are kind of struggling with either confidence or just even that desire, like there's some kids that have absolutely no desire to learn to swim. It's like, okay, you need to take him to the pool and you need to show him how kids his age are doing all these amazing fun things.
Right.
And it's that positive peer pressure thing. And in group lessons, you get to kind of lean on that a little bit easier because you've got, the kid that's the star of the class or what have you, or even one class over. It's like, hey, look at that kiddo. See what he's doing? He's getting those rings off the bottom and he is having so much fun. Don't you want to have fun? Those kinds of things. So I think it's great when it can be a natural thing that doesn't even need to be fostered.
Yeah, exactly. The true joy of swimming. Like,
yes, absolutely. Your favorite activity?
Ooh, well, so I am a runner to my core.
Yeah.
I did my first 5K when I was 5. Again, because
oh my gosh.
I know. I
because
wanted
of your sister?
my mom, actually. I wanted to
beautiful.
go. She is a huge marathon runner and has done countless marathons all through growing up. And I wanted to go with her to a race, and they had a 5K, and she was like, "You're too young. Like, can you even run a 5K?" And it was she mapped it out. She's like, "If you can run 38 laps around our like neighborhood at the time, then you can come with me." It's like, okay, so I ran
Challenge
30 laps.
accepted.
Yeah. And that carried me into then Division I athletics. I ran for University of Iowa, and I've always loved competing, but now running is really just where it's my meditation. It's how I like speak to a higher power, how I understand what's going on in my life and work through things. Movement, the best way for me is just running, and it always has been. Lately, I've been doing a lot more just hiking, yoga every once in a while, but I mostly run. Like that's just it for me. And when I get to swim, I'm very happy.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Thanks for throwing that in for me.
For real. It's just like, and sometimes it's like access to the pool or making myself like actually go to the pool and get changed. The nice thing about running is I just put on
You just
shoes.
walk out the door, basically. Yeah, I was talking to somebody about just the convenience of running or cycling and what
Yeah.
sometimes a pain in the ass swimming is,
Yeah.
because you have to pack your bag, you have to go to the pool, you have to get out of the car, it's just all this, right?
Yeah.
And so it is labor intensive
Yeah.
just to go fall into the water
Truly the
sometimes.
best workout though. After I'm like, don't I do this more?
Right? You always feel good. Unfortunately, today is Thursday, or no, today's Friday. I have not swam this week yet. I'm
Oh,
embarrassed to say. My goal is usually 3 or 4 times a week.
okay.
And so we're gonna go for a swim later today. I'm very excited about that. But it just has been a struggle,
Yeah.
legit, to get to the pool this week for me. I know I'm gonna feel so much better for having done it. And I always feel that sense of relief and gratitude and gratification and, all the positive things. I never feel anything negative after I swim. Like,
Right.
it's dumb that it's taken me 4 days this week to
Sometimes it's
realize
like the
that.
week though.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's
All kinds
valid.
of things get to play in, and when I
Yeah.
don't have a competition, it's a lot easier to say, I'll do it tomorrow.
Exactly. Yeah, I know that. No, that's funny.
Unfortunately. So, yeah. So one of the things that we do on the podcast is we talk about an ebb and a flow. So looking for something that's been hard for you and something that's been easy. So, kind of that yin and yang, that black and white, ebb and flow.
Yeah. I know. I feel like flowing for me, the creativity is usually something that really flows well. And same with just like its ideas and being out in nature. Like that's my flow state, is just being able to come up with stories or find stories in different places, map it out, meet people, connect people. But my real just like think kind of that ebb right now is putting boundaries up with time. And that's something I've never really been good at. And I'm having to, as a business owner, really say, like, I don't have the time, or I need clearer understanding of what that time commitment's going to be, or like
hmm
if you can work within my schedule, because it's not just me as a storyteller or a freelancer working with like a network. I have a team of 5 that rely on me being there and being like at my best.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I think like creating personal boundaries and also just like time and trying to communicate it in a way that still feels like me and doesn't feel like off-putting or anything.
Uh-huh.
I think that's been kind of whenever I'm not in my flow state, it's because there's something that keeps, like, I'm just saying yes to too much, or
Uh-huh.
I'm not giving myself that respect of like, your time is really important.
Yeah.
You need to put that boundary down and rest.
It's a really hard thing to learn. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm in my late 40s and trying to embrace that for the last 20 years,
Yeah.
quite literally. It's an art to figure it out. And I think it's something that is constantly changing,
Mm-hmm.
because and if you haven't figured this out yet, I would be shocked if you haven't. But as a small business owner, there are certain things that you have to say yes to.
Yeah.
Like, you have to. And knowing what that looks like and what that needs to be for you and your business is sometimes really hard.
Yeah.
And it's trying to kind of, figure out that, okay, this is within our mission and vision.
Yep.
And these other things aren't, but it's coming back to whatever your rubric is to quantify what you can and should say yes or no to.
Yeah.
And it's an important piece for sure. So I respect that. And that's really good that you've identified that in yourself, because I think for me, it took me saying yes way too many times, and
Yeah.
there being ramifications for that. And unfortunately, it was a really hard lesson for me to learn.
Yeah. No, I really think my 20s were all about like, yes, go, go,
Mhm.
go, try different things, like continue. I mean, I was traveling so much that like if I didn't have as much of like responsibility, I guess would be the right
Mhm.
word,
Mhm.
to other people or to the communities, because I would be there for so like 2 months or
Mhm.
so. And so if I couldn't finish something, or if I said yes to it and it was like, oh, sorry, like I'm actually leaving tomorrow, it was an easy way out and it wasn't a good way to do it, I know. But no relationships were really severed because of it. So I never felt like, oh, that's probably, I need to confront this.
Yeah.
But having lived in Northwest Arkansas for 4 years now, it's the longest I've ever
Mhm.
lived somewhere as my adult life. And it's crazy. It's, double the amount of time I've ever lived somewhere permanently for as an adult. And so I do have responsibilities and people who are like, you said you do this.
Yeah.
And I know where you work. Like,
Right? Yeah.
see you.
I know where you live.
So it can be, that's been interesting. So my 30s are like truly just, it's the start of my 30s now, but it's like, okay, you need to put up those
Mhm,
boundaries
mhm.
early.
Yeah. I think it's important to know that you need to take care of yourself
Yeah,
and your husband and family and
totally.
that sort of thing. I think is yeah, it's an important part. It's something that I think gets forgotten about a lot of times. I've been married 26 and a half years.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna eat some points.
That's right. Some days are really easy. Some days are really hard. Just ask my husband. But it's that you can't afford to be selfish in a
Yeah.
marriage. And that I think is a really interesting perspective and is often forgotten.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of times the easy piece is to have that focus of me. And it's way easier when you have that me to then just sever the tie of marriage. And it's work, man.
Yeah,
It's
I
work.
believe that.
I love it.
Oh, yeah.
And I wouldn't dare change it for anything. And so glad to have that perspective of it's a us, it's a team, but
Yeah.
it's taken 20 years probably for me to really figure that out and respect the team aspect of marriage. I don't even know how we got down that road so much so, but anyway, it is
life and journey.
It is,
Totally.
absolutely. And I mean, it's even a part of community.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
to go kind of try to circle us back a little bit, it's a really important part. And, you see so many struggles that come out of marriages ending, and it's heartbreaking. And anyway,
Yeah, home life totally
Yeah.
carries into community work too.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's a good thing. So you mentioned running and you kind of really went by fast over running for where'd you go to school?
I went to University of Iowa.
Iowa.
Yeah.
So tell me, I'm a former Division I athlete myself.
Yeah,
Tell me some things that you learned as a D1 athlete.
definitely a former just like overachiever. I don't know if I still am an overachiever or not, but like, I collegiate athletics was really, really tough on me.
Yeah.
I think that was the hardest 4 years. I didn't know if I'd get out of it. Like that feeling of like I don't know who I am outside of running. I don't
Yeah.
know.
There's a lot of identity tied into that, isn't there?
Gosh, it was insane. Like you really weren't a student athlete. You were an athlete student. And like that was just I would it was just awful trying to figure out how I was going to have a career if it wasn't going to be tied to running.
Yeah.
If it wasn't going to be, okay, can I make a living off of being a professional athlete? My goal really since I was like 8 or 10 was, okay, I just need to sounds so funny when I say it, but in my mind I was like, I just need to go to the Olympics and then I will
Love
be a sportscaster for the rest of my life because I would be a former Olympian. And I was like, I don't have to win at the Olympics. I just need
You just need to go.
And that was me being like, I'm not like a crazy dreamer. I just need to go. I'm not saying I need to win. I'm like, I'm realistic.
That's amazing.
Which still is how I talk to Dawn sometimes. I'm like, I'm realistic. I'm not saying I'm going to like be the best or win at this. I'm just saying,
Right.
he's like, you realize you were insane sometimes. But anyway,
I think
when you
that's
think
great.
about that, like being a collegiate athlete, I think it's only 1% or less than 1%.
Yeah, the stats are insane.
Yeah, population actually did that or is able to do that. And I think, it was hard because I had a lackluster career as an athlete. I was just battling different like eating disorders and mental just feeling of identity again. And then like, what am I doing? And that led to a lot of injuries. And so
Mm.
just, I think now, luckily, there's a lot more dialogue around what it's like to be a female athlete performing at a very high level and what we need. And, lighter isn't always faster and things like that that are a part of the training going into. But at the time when I was going into college, that wasn't there.
Yeah.
I think that was really hard, but I definitely learned. I think anytime I'm looking for someone to like partner with or like hire or really have a part of my team, I love people who were athletes or still are athletes because time management is just ingrained.
Yeah.
And they're in commitment too. Like if I tell you I've got to wake up at 4:30 tomorrow, I'll see you at 5. I will like see you at 5. I'm going to be there. And I wake up because I need my ritual at 4:30. But it's just little things. I think that if you haven't experienced being like the expectations of being a Division 1 athlete, it's like you don't always understand. Or like when you
Yeah.
tell people who aren't really athletes, like, oh yeah, like I ran a Big Ten conference or something, and you're like, hey, so anyway,
Yeah.
no, but that still translates so much into what we're
So
doing.
much. Absolutely.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I think a long-winded way of saying like the experience, while it wasn't what I would have loved, like the outcome wasn't what I loved,
Right.
I do think it was because it was the hardest 4 years. Everything that I've been able to do now really like is off of what I've trained my mind figured out, I guess, in a way, or like my process for how to get out of funks or how to get out of like, okay, that wasn't the performance, that wasn't the race we wanted, but like, what can we change? Or
Yeah.
like it happened,
Yeah.
you really get that one instance to leave it all on the track, or you think about it for the rest of your life. And there are some races where I'm like, man, I'm going to think about that forever.
Yeah.
Of like a split second that I just, didn't have it in me. And there's things that in life that are like that.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. There's a lot of mental growth. You touched on that a little bit. And
yeah.
I think, some of the folks that we've been able to chat with on the tributary already, there's a gentleman that did the English Channel,
Ooh.
but he was unsuccessful the first couple of times, not just the first time, but the first couple of times. And that mental fortitude that by way of doing an athletic endeavor can afford you is really incredible. And
Yeah.
I feel like as an athlete, that part of things, like your body is just a vehicle to learn and do other things, I feel like.
Yeah.
And the mental growth that comes from that kind of competition and day in and day out and year over year over year. I mean, you're talking 8 or 10 years old.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you did that for, 15 years of your life, basically.
Yeah.
And that's huge. That's huge. And the growth and the development of figuring out what you were physically capable of
Mhm.
was a testament to your mental fortitude. And I think when we as athletes can figure that piece out, and then it translates to the rest of your life, and not just the act of running or swimming or whatever the physicality piece is, I think it's really amazing. And I think it's really neat to see when employers or other business partners and things like that acknowledge that.
Yeah.
It's a really cool thing. I remember, so I grew up here, but husband has worked for Walmart forever, and we moved away for almost 20 years. And when we came back, so we had lived in Florida for 8 years, North Carolina for 10. I went and swam everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was always the fastest one in the pool and, whatever. I come back here and I go swimming. I'm swimming with 7 people.
Okay.
6 of us were former Division 1 swimmers.
God.
Like, that hadn't happened in 20 years since I had been in the pool at the University of Arkansas on the swim team.
That's nuts.
Like, it was insane.
Yeah.
It was insane. But the caliber of person that is in and around Northwest Arkansas is just that much higher, that much more committed to life in general, I think.
Yeah.
But it's a fascinating way to spend time and get to know folks is that, so it's not just about what you did or didn't do, but
Yeah.
it's what that growth has taught you that I think is really, really a neat and special thing.
Thanks.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's cool.
Thanks. That also was like a big thing with my husband, like our connection. He swam at University of Texas, and then being like he and I had similar feelings of like that, how hard it was
Hmm.
being in that, just I almost want to just call it an arena because it really was like
Oh,
like
absolutely.
being
Yeah,
in
yeah.
that for 4 years. But it's little things even now. Sometimes we'll check each other because of it's like, okay, well, what is this coming from? This is a competition. Like he and I cannot play Uno together. Little things like that
Oh
were
God,
like
that's
competition
hilarious.
wise,
Yeah.
we can't do. But then also talking through it has been huge. Like on one of our backpacking trips, we were winter backpacking in Alaska.
Oh my heavens.
Yeah, we were in the backcountry in Denali. We were two of only four permitted people within the park. So it's like a 30-mile radius. We're the only people. We had a really awful snowstorm. We went through 6 feet of snow, like punchy snow that we had to snowshoe through.
Holy
We've got our like
cow.
45-pound packs. I think he had 60 pounds because of the tent. But so we set up camp and he and I are sitting there and we have experience, but not like crazy Bear Grylls
Yeah.
survival experience. We're just, probably overly confident people. And that's what you get when you get a lot of athletes.
Yes, you do.
And so we're sitting in the tent, and I just remember he and I saying, like, there's some type A's personalities where it would be like, we said we were going to go 4 days in here, like we're
Yeah.
going to do it. But he and I have always leaned on that, like, we're kind of type B athletes on the mentality of like, we will be flexible if we need to.
Yeah.
And deviate from it. And so we were like, what's like, there's no summit to this. Like, we're not trying to reach like the height. There's no mountain. There's no, we're just out here. And like, no one cares if we make it 4 days or we turn around and we made it 2.
Yeah. Yep.
And so those type of things I feel like are true, just like funny, intimate moments with your partner, also knowing like how to the athlete mindset where you're like, okay, we need to come back to this. We're not competing at nationals.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Just us. Like your ego will not be bruised.
That's it. I'm glad you guys came to that realization.
Yes, for our parents too.
I bet. Oh, that's intense.
Yeah.
That's intense. Yeah. That's a good thing to figure out. My husband, former D1 swimmer as well. I do know. And it's funny to see like, so we take the dogs for walks literally every day. And every so often, like he'll edge out just a little bit ahead of me. And so so I pick up my pace, and then all of a sudden we're like really like power walking, and it's like, will you just slow down?
So funny.
So funny. Or when we did some running. We're water creatures.
Okay. Yeah.
We shuffle. I really shouldn't call it a run, but we would really, it's hilly here, right?
Yeah,
and so, and we don't just like do things to do things. Like we're going to figure out the why and how to do it best. And, those kinds of things. And one of the things that, I don't know, he or I read, it was probably him, was something along the lines of, like when you're going up the hill, you should try to run faster and harder and those kinds of things. And you'll leave basically your competition in the dust.
Yeah.
And it's a great way to kind of mix things up and, that kind of stuff. And so we were training for 5Ks, and then we ended up doing the Bentonville half. And like we would legit come to a hill. I would be, 20 feet ahead of him. And then going up that hill was like, he was like, something lit in him every time. It was so funny. And he would just slaughter me going up the hill.
Yeah.
I was like, dude. It was, anyway.
Yeah.
That competition is legit.
Yeah. It's in the house.
It really is.
Sometimes it just needs an outlet.
Yes. And so to that point, I think it's way better when we can do it literally on the trail as opposed to inside the home.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, it's an important thing to know. Maybe that's contributed to our blissful 26 and a half years.
Yeah, we'll take it.
We'll definitely take it as a win. So this part, if you don't want to answer, that's absolutely fine. Okay. But you and Dawn are about to embark on a really big adventure.
Yeah. I hope we end up having a little water baby ourselves. We'll see. But we're expecting a baby boy in
I'm
August.
so excited
And
for you
thank
guys.
you. It's our first child and my first experience with my body changing the way it is. So I'm very excited about getting in the pool today to swim
Good.
a little bit and offset some of this
Yeah.
second trimester
Things
feeling.
shift. It's so weird and so annoying.
Yeah, it's a learning experience
Oh,
for sure.
absolutely.
Yeah, but we're really
Absolutely.
excited.
Good. I'm super excited for you.
So hopefully I'm not throwing the kid in the pool in the deep end, but
Right?
Don can teach him how to swim.
There you go. There you go.
You
Wow.
Don.
I should say I'll have some tips for the both
Yeah,
of you.
totally. I love that. We come to you for sure.
That'll be great. Yeah. I'm really excited for you guys on that adventure. I think it's going to be really exciting to see you guys as parents. And
Same.
yeah, it's a huge journey that will never end.
Yeah.
And you can't turn around after 2 days.
I was like, yeah, I talk about identity too. Like that's
Yeah.
a big one I'm just kind of dealing with right now too. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, so I am a mom forever.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that.
This is
that's
happening.
wow.
Mhm.
Which is it feels
It's a
so
pretty cool
blessed.
job title.
Yeah. It's like that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Well, we've talked about a lot of stuff. One thing that we didn't mention that I find amazing, and now that I really know you, is of no surprise. But the first time that we actually met was Lakeside.
Yes.
Dawn had been coming out and doing a handful of swims on our Swim-Oz weekly swims and
Yeah.
towed you along, and you did amazing. I was
Open water swim.
so impressed. You did great. You literally just jumped in and went for it. But what was great was after the fact. So this was in preparation. I don't know. We were a month,
Yeah,
even
it was
less
just a couple
than.
weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
prior to the Oz Mile, and I don't even know how we got on topic, but I had purchased this amazing beaver costume.
Yeah.
The swim happens at Beaver Lake. It seemed only fitting that we had a mascot that was a beaver.
Yeah.
And I think maybe Dawn had mentioned that you were wanting to help out or something along those lines. Anyway, you ended up being our mascot.
Yeah, and that was my first job out of high school. First job in high school. I was 16. First job ever.
So tell me just a smidge about that, because I think it's a great story.
Well, I still do have experience because I was like, I have experience for the job, Bonnie. Like,
Yeah, and I'm like, wait, what? Like, who shows up having been a mascot? It's great.
I was the river bandit for a minor league baseball team that was in Davenport, Iowa, and I loved it. I hokey pokeyed on the dugout. I knew all the innings. I would race kids around
That's
the ball
amazing.
field. I actually came out of this cornfield because it was Iowa. So I come out of the cornfield to this I think it was AC/DC. They'd switch it up.
Amazing.
What song would be playing? But it was like my jam. Being an entertainer, like getting to take photos with people. I was a 7-foot raccoon, river bandit raccoon.
That's awesome.
And yeah, so I brought that to Beaver Lake when
you did.
For the Oz Mile Swim. It was so much fun.
You crushed it. We've got to find somebody that can do it justice this year. But it was, I think some of my favorite videos are of our beaver, Ozzy. It was a great addition to the event for sure. So
it might not be able to fit into the costume either. And other people are gonna be like, "Oh, Ozzy got a little thick."
Yeah, Ozzy's gotten fluffy. Amazing. Awesome. Well, I was so glad that you literally jumped into that hat and talk about identity.
Right.
It was great. It was fantastic. So I'm excited for all the things that you guys have accomplished. I think Third Space Coffee is amazing, and I've been trying to, like, when folks will say, "Hey, let's meet up for coffee," I'm like, yeah, I know where we're going.
Thank you. Honestly, it means so much.
Well, it's absolutely my pleasure. It's a great place to be, and some of the things that you guys are doing there with best friends is just it's really special. Cool. So glad that that's literally in our backyard. Yeah. So yeah. All right. Well, Make sure to follow us on all your favorite places to listen and watch. Subscribe so you know when the latest podcast premieres. Share us with your friends and family. We're so glad that you took the time to listen to us today. Thanks for floating along with us on our water adventures. We look forward to splashing around with you again next time. That's so fun.